Remember the Irish saying, a good laugh and good sleep are best cures for almost anything. Are you worried about memory loss as you age? Well, you're not alone. By using the simple hacks discussed in this video, you can reduce your risk of dementia by 30%. What if I told you that one of the most important things to do for your brain health is something that you do every single day? If you're new here, I'm Dr. Verma. I'm a behavioral neurologist, and it is my passion to share information about cognitive health and dementia. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Well, I have heard this multiple times growing up, and while I do not know about how it can make you rich, I do know that good sleep is important for both your physical as well as mental health. According to a study published in Nature Communication involving about 8,000 middle-aged individuals, it was found that sleeping 6 hours or less than 6 hours consistently is associated with increased risk of dementia by 30%. We spend about a third of our time sleeping during our lifetime. So it's not just rest, but it's also repair. When we are sleeping, glymphatic system in our brains becomes active. Now, this is a system which is responsible for removing all the toxins and the waste products from the brain, which are being formed during the daytime. This is very similar to what happens in our households when we are busy cooking and eating. We have a lot of dishes that are getting collected in the kitchen sink, and at the nighttime or in the evening time you may put all the dishes in the dishwasher, and by the morning they are all sparkling clean for your use again. But still the question arises, what is so important about sleep that our cognitive health is so dependent on it? Well, it goes back to this glymphatic system, and one of the toxins that it removes from our bodies is the amyloid protein. Now, if you remember in my previous videos, I've talked about how amyloid protein is a bad protein that accumulates around our brain cells, and it causes inflammation and other changes which eventually lead to Alzheimer's disease. The other thing about sleep is we often think of it as a very passive or automatic thing that happens to us. But what if I told you that our sleep is very tightly regulated by our bodies and our brains, and there are things that you can do to improve your sleep? So there are two major regulators of our sleep. Number one is the homeostatic drive. So this is where during the day your drive to fall asleep becomes higher and higher. By the end of the day, you go to sleep and then the drive reduces, and the next day the same thing happens again. So what is our take on napping, and why do doctors recommend not napping during the daytime? Well, this is the exact reason. Because you're building up your drive, if you nap in the middle of the day, you will kind of reduce your drive. So at the nighttime, you won't be as sleepy. This is very similar to how if you are snacking throughout the day, during the real meal times, you'll not be as hungry. Now, our brain also controls our sleep cycle, and the way it does is with the help of a very small structure which is in the specific part of our brain called hypothalamus, and this structure is called as the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It's a fancy term for a biological clock. And how does this clock get entrained? Well, it uses the light in our atmosphere to figure out whether it's day or whether it's night, and then according to it, it programs the body to be awake or feel sleepy. So tip number 2 coming through. Well, if light is so important for our sleeps, what about using it to our own advantage? So the recommendation is to have sunlight exposure within 1 hour of waking up in the morning, and to reduce your light exposure 2 hours before the time that you are intending to sleep. So now that we know that sleep is not just a passive automatic process, we should also now look into what are the different changes that can happen as we age and as someone has cognitive issues or dementia. But before looking into that, we will first look at the structure of the sleep. It is broken down into 4 stages, which are very conveniently named as stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and REM sleep. Now, from stage 1 to 3, your body is just in the process of falling asleep. So in stage 1, you feel drowsy, your heart rate, your respiratory rate goes lower than when you were awake. In stage 2, these numbers go further lower, your body becomes more and more relaxed. Stage 3, you guessed it right, your heart rate and your respiratory rate goes further lower. But the REM sleep is slightly different. This is the stage when we are dreaming, and as a result, our heart rate and our respiratory rate look like when we are awake. We circle through all these stages multiple times in the night. And in terms of your cognitive health, stage 3 of the sleep, when you are the most relaxed, is the most pertinent part of your sleep. Now, as we age, we do notice a lot of differences in our sleeping patterns, and we wonder, is something wrong with our sleep? Well, there are some changes that are perfectly normal and happen with everyone. So in terms of the normal changes, stage 3 shortens as we age. And if you remember, we did talk about how the glymphatic system is most active during this stage, and it removes the amyloid from our brains during this stage. The other change that happens as we become older is that our time to feel sleepy shifts earlier in the evening. So you may start feeling sleepy around 7 p.m. instead of feeling sleepy at 10, and you may also wake up earlier in the morning at around 3 to 4 a.m. This is called as the advanced sleep phase. Tip number 3 coming in. So if you notice that you are someone who is starting to feel more sleepy at around 7 and then you consistently wake up early in the morning, it is okay to do so. So these are normal changes that happen with everyone. But then there are some changes that are pathologic, which affect our sleep adversely. One of them is chronic obstructive lung disease. Then there are conditions such as congestive heart failure, wherein people will feel very short of breath when they lay flat and they have to put pillows behind them. In addition, as we age, we develop different kinds of pain condition, and it's known that certain pain conditions are worse at night, disrupting our sleep. Now, in addition to these medical conditions, there are also multiple medications that are associated with poor sleep, because maybe they make you more sleepy during the daytime and then decrease your drive, or maybe they affect your stages of deep sleep during the nighttime. The tip number 4 for us is that if you are on multiple medications, it's worth to go through the medication list and see if it is any medication that might be contributing to your poor sleep, and then it might be a risk-benefit discussion with your primary care provider. One of the sleep disorders that is very common as we become middle age or older age is called as obstructive sleep apnea. So what happens in this condition is when we are sleeping, all our muscles do become floppy, but when our airways become more floppy than it is expected, then it can cause the airways to collapse, and then it kind of sends a signal to your body that you're dying, which is not good because it increases your stress hormone, it increases your blood pressure. So if you are someone who's noticing that you snore, you gasp, you're not feeling refreshed when you wake up, and you easily fall asleep during the daytime, it's worth getting checked for obstructive sleep apnea. So understanding sleep is one thing, but getting a good night's sleep, that's where most people struggle. And thankfully, to our rescue comes what is called as sleep hygiene. Now, these are proven behaviors that if we do consistently, we can improve our sleep quality. So number 1, it is very important to have a very comfortable environment in your bedroom. It includes having low dim lighting, having cool temperature, as well as avoid any noises. Now, in addition to having a good environment, you also need to have a consistent schedule. So you need to have a consistent time to go to bed and also a consistent time to wake up every morning. Now, if you had to choose between the two, the recommendation is to choose a consistent consistent time when you wake up. Be very mindful of any kind of stimulants if you take. For example, if you are someone who loves coffee or tea or chai, it's important to first of all be mindful of the quantity that you're taking, but also the timeline that you're taking should be limited to up to early afternoon. And then try to also incorporate other tips that I have discussed in the video. One of them is the light therapy, so include exposure to light early in the day up till early to mid afternoon. This will also help to align your suprachiasmatic nucleus to the daytime. Avoid working out too late in the evening because sometimes it can be too activating and may affect your sleep. In addition, it's also important to address your stress. So when we think about sleep, a lot of the times we tend to focus at the time of sleeping, but it's also very important to think about it in a holistic manner, thinking about managing your stress, managing your exercise, as well as exposure to the light during the daytime so that you can have a restful sleep at nighttime. Remember the Irish saying, a good laugh and good sleep are best cures for almost anything. In the next video, we are going to talk about another lifestyle measure, that is stress management. Till then, take care and have a restful night of sleep.